Hello there.
Hi.
How you doing, Ashley?
I'm good.
Good, good. Well, I'm Yala Ford. I'm on the board of GFA, and I want to welcome you. And it would be great if you could just welcome yourself and let us know a little bit about you.
I'm Ashley Soudermiller. I am a mixed media artist. I live in Harrisonburg, Virginia, in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley. I have a home studio that I work from, and currently I'm home with the kids and the family. Nobody's back to school yet, so yeah.
Okay, you mentioned that you have kids. Tell us about your kids and how that's going with your art practice.
We have four children. Our oldest is 14 and our youngest is 7. And like I said, they haven't been back to school yet. So we're trying to balance homeschooling or virtual school and working. My husband is a elementary school administrator, so he certainly has had his fair share of craziness this year. So yeah, we're just plugging along and trying to figure out how to how to do this even after a year. So yeah.
Well, well, thank you. All things virtual. So I think that we'll start this kind of interview and conversation with a video that was created by you, and we'll kind of show that to our viewers. And I'm excited to see it. I'm hoping our viewers can hear something because I can't. Can you hear anything, Ashley? Oh no. The joys, right? So while they fix that, Ashley, let's talk about the pieces that are behind you. For starters, that orange one right behind you,
Mhm.
that one seems quite beautiful. I love the contrast. Maybe you could tell us the name and a little bit about this piece, and then while they fix the volume.
Sure. Yeah, this piece I do have available in my Invent shop. Over the last year, so since the pandemic started, I had been coming out to my studio and I wasn't really sure what direction. Early lockdown, we were just kind of home a lot, and I would come out to my studio and I just sort of started cutting up pieces of fabric and things that I had on hand that I'd been using in some of my other work. One thing led to another, and I just started to cut out some of the floral shapes that were in the fabric. And so I have had a number of these floral pieces that I've made. This one I think is number 60. So since May, once I started these floral pieces, I have made a little more than 60 of them at this point. So this one they're pieces of cut fabric, leather, there are ribbons, there's some string, there's velvet, there are pieces of vintage pillowcases. So I collect a lot of different textiles and different things that were abandoned or discarded.
So it's really a collage of sort, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm curious if there's a way that you could take it off the wall
Yeah.
or zoom in, because we can't really see the texture at all. And maybe
Yeah.
just kind of tell us kind of, ooh, nice, very
Yeah.
nice.
So
I
this
could feel
is
the
there are some pieces of embroidery. So I cut out old pieces of embroidery from old napkins or doilies or things that I find. This is from a pillowcase, and some of these are pieces of fabric. So yeah, I think you can see this a little closer.
very beautiful. I love how organic it is, and
Mhm.
the colors come together so nicely.
Yeah.
Ashley, that's beautiful. I think we're going to try the video one more time,
Sure. Okay.
and then we can get back to that, and then we'll start it again.
Sure. use that in this one. My working process is pretty intuitive. I often have kind of an idea of what I'm going to do with these pieces before I start. I have all of these lovely piles of cut pieces of fabric that are ready to go. That usually makes the working process quicker. So today I'm going to be using some of these, sort of this muted green lace piece, and some of these. I also have a bunch of these bandits, which are kind of like a little grass piece. So sometimes I put the fabric on in the work while it's wet. Obviously, then the fabric will take on the color that's underneath. And sometimes then I desire to wait until it's dry. So I will wait until it's dry so that these fabric pieces remain white. So now I have a couple of minutes to wait until some of these layers are dry. I often work on a number of pieces at once. So again, there are pieces here on the floor in various stages of progress. These works on paper. So that way, if I'm waiting on something to dry, I can move on to something else. Or if I get stuck, or something's just not working quite right, or I can't quite figure out what my next move is going to be on a piece, I'm able to switch gears and work on something else rather than just sitting and waiting. So some of these layers are starting to dry, and so then I will use acrylic paint. To squirt paint directly into the piece. I rarely use a palette. So next in my working process, after a couple of layers, washer on is just starting to place some flowers that we have in time and this process often I lay things out and decide what types of things move around or need to cut other pieces to fill in. So once all the pieces are attached to the gel medium, then I mix that in with some other layers of acrylic paint. And then I also use this ruby outliner to do some of the stems and sort of just like this guy, unfortunately, I can't figure out if I'm going to use it. So this is the only thing that I'm just making from that leather. So here. So sometimes I'm just going to picture about something positionally. I'll just leave it and not attach it and come back to it as I add some other layers and the piece develops a little bit more. So again, now some black paint. I like to have this just straight from the tube. And I again rarely use a palette like I use some white, black, white, and parchment. This is one of my favorite. It's almost white, with a little hint of olive. Just a little bit of green. I really like the colors that just sort of shift really slowly from like a orangey, white, olive. So the next step then is I adhere all of the fabric and paper with gel medium. So as I'm going, I kind of leave space for, I pick up the pieces and have a composition that I feel really works. But there is kind of that shifting of the composition after we go. I feel like it's nice that these don't feel placed too precisely or feel then the next step is the leaf outliner. Again, I use this kind of like the acrylic layers wound up covering over the work into it while it's wet. Sometimes those lines kind of disappear, push into the background. So I just worked through, again, this will probably have a few more layers of acrylic, maybe a couple more pieces of fabric, washing some of those, figure out exactly where this part of that will work positionally, or as I add some layers of acrylic, you can see this darker, make it into this position. So thanks for watching as I work through the process of my work, and I'll be available to answer questions. Hi, I'm Ashley.
Ashley, that was fantastic. Thank you for walking us through your process. It was quite fascinating. I am now going to take some questions from the audience, and hopefully you can answer some of them. Is that fine?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have a preferred fabric that you work with? That question's coming from Jacob.
I have used a really wide range of fabric. There are some things I found, fabrics that are more synthetic that I don't like. I often work back into the fabric the same way you would paint a canvas. So with acrylic paint or with an ink tints pen. So using ink on the fabric. So there are some things that don't, that don't absorb water the same way, or that the paper or the paint just kind of sits on top. So I do a lot of testers and figure out what things work and what things absorb the water the way that I like them to. And I've tried just about everything. So I use a lot of cotton. So, like vintage sheets and things like that, and fabric that I find at thrift stores. I've started cutting up lace pieces, pieces of embroidery, a lot of velvet. I just like the texture of the velvet. So yeah, I've tried lots of different things.
Great. Is there a certain palette that you'd like to stay within?
Not necessarily. There are some colors obviously that I'm drawn to more than others. And sometimes I get kind of hooked on a certain color depending on what fabric I'm finding. So again, I repurpose things a lot. And so if I find something that I really like, certainly I cut it all up and use it until it's gone. And then sometimes I find something similar and sometimes I don't. That kind of feel like that era is over and I have to move on to another palette. Sometimes the weather affects my palette. So, days where there are snowstorms, sometimes the work doesn't have as much color or things like that. Yeah, it's a sort of a natural process of finding my palette.
Excellent. How long have you been participating with Gasparilla Festival?
This would actually have been my second show with Gasparilla. Last year was my first time. Over the last 6 or so years, I've done just a handful of shows. So maybe like 1 or 2 or 3 a year. And then in the middle of 2019, my husband and I decided that I would stop. I used to teach adjunct. So I used to teach at the college level, and I decided that I would not be doing that anymore and I would start to travel. So 2020 was my first year to start traveling, and I got into some shows that I was really excited about. And obviously those didn't happen. So we'll kind of keep pushing those back until those shows start to happen again. So Gasparilla was the only show I did last year before the lockdown.
So this format that we're in, do you find it to be useful for you?
In terms of like the virtual show?
Yeah.
I think it's nice to continue to let the public know that us artists are still here working, waiting for, our venue space, whether or not it's the booth show or gallery spaces. We're kind of just waiting for those things to start to reopen. Certainly the work as an artist, we want people to come see our work, and it's very important for people to see things in person. And that isn't happening virtually, but I still think it's nice to be able to connect on some level, even if it's not exactly the way things used to be.
Excellent. And what inspired you to become an artist? And when did you decide to make it your career from being an adjunct?
Um, I knew I wanted to be an artist, or I knew I was an artist ever since I was a little kid. My parents always bought me art supplies. They always pushed me to be creative. I come from a family of lots of people who are builders and makers and artists and photographers. So I never didn't know what it was like to be an artist. I feel like it's kind of just embedded in me. I knew that I also wanted it to be a career. So I finished my MFA in 2007. And like I said, I've always worked, with teaching or curating or putting art shows together and things like that. So I've always been doing something in the arts. Just within the last year or so, thinking about more selling work in order to make art my career. So I've always been doing things in the arts.
Excellent. What has been, I guess, I kind of taking from your thoughts, what has been your biggest takeaway from this past year?
I guess my biggest takeaway is just to be patient, to learn to wait, to learn to slow down. Certainly, I do feel really thankful that our health hasn't been affected by the pandemic. So I feel like, we can say we're thankful for that. We're here at our home and we're safe and we have food. My husband's job has remained constant. So I do feel like, we can take time to slow down and to think about things that are important to us as a family. Just to be thankful for what we do have rather than really wishing for things to go back to the way they were before. So I think that's my biggest take.
What a thoughtful response. Thank you.
Mhm.
What is do you have a favorite painting that's close by, and why? Maybe you could tell us about that.
Um, yeah, so I can turn my camera here a little bit. This is one of a newly completed piece here, the chair. So I've been making lots of chair artwork over the last like 5 or 6 years. And I had this piece I actually started just before I went to Gasparilla last year, and didn't finish it. And it recently, within the last couple of weeks, I did come and finish and work on this piece. And I added in some of the floral things that have been starting in some of my other work. So it's kind of neat to take some time away from a piece and then come back to it and see how my working process has changed or how things have evolved in my work. This one is also listed on my Eventney page.
Great, excellent. And if we could see that, is it too much for you to bring it closer to us so that we could see
Yeah.
it? This is the page that was referenced that you can
Yeah,
find
it's in
Ashley's.
2 pieces. So you can see there's texture here. There are pieces of lace, and these are vintage yo-yo quilt square or yo-yo quilt pieces. So I found a quilt that was not quite completed, so all these pieces were cut by someone else. There's acrylic paint. So that's just the top section. It is a diptych, so there are 2 pieces. And the bottom.
That's excellent. Excellent.
So these are some dark green velvet pieces.
So is this chair an actual still life, or is this something out of your imagination? What emotions were you trying to evoke while you're doing this?
I had started making chair paintings 5 or so, maybe 6 years ago. Someone broke an heirloom rocking chair. I wanted to teach myself how to cane, so I started to cut apart work on paper and string and fabric and different things and started to weave a caning pattern. That led to me just looking at the chair as an object of something that's symbolic, that reminds you of a person, that reminds you of a certain space. And so those just sort of evolved, and some 900 chair paintings later, just kind of stuck with that. It kind of developed into a narrative of memory, of expectancy, kind of transports you to a different space and a different place. Yeah, so the chair paintings have just kind of been something that I had been doing for a long time. And when I went to Gasparilla last year, I brought a whole body of chair paintings. And then the floral pieces are something that have happened since then.
Excellent. So I got another question from the
Mhm.
audience. Have you always been a multimedia artist, and how did you find this medium?
I have always, since grad school, I've always used lots of different materials in my work. More recently, within the last 10 years or so, have incorporated the fabric. I like reusing something that was discarded. So again, I talk about using things that I find at thrift stores. So quilts that somebody had started and then didn't finish, or fabric, something that just strikes me because of the color, the pattern. And I like to find ways to put those things together in my work. Um, so I've always used mixed media. More recently, adding the fabric into that.
Excellent, excellent. How do you think this virtual kind of festival has supported artists and impacts the local community? And how do you think that it might be able to find others in um, the outside area that maybe would have not seen your artwork before?
Well, I certainly think like the virtual festival is helpful to give access to the art show to a broad community. Again, I think it's nice to be able to see that artists are still working and artists are still here. So I do think that the virtual festival can work that way. Again, as an artist, it's really important for people to see work in person. It's important for people to be able to get close to the work and see texture and the physicality of the work. And that doesn't always happen virtually. However, I do think doing something, doing a virtual show is better than doing nothing. So yeah, I do think that the virtual platform has its perks. So
And I think when you're thinking about the texture and the surface of your canvas, I would love to be able to understand a little more. How do you get it kind of to all blend together and come
mhm.
together? When you look at the side, is there certain materials you're using in order to finish the piece? I know we got to see you begin a piece, but I
Yeah.
think the end result, it would just be interesting for as we come to the end of the interview, for you to kind of
Mhm.
speak to us about how you conclude your painting.
So a lot of the fabric and things, sometimes the acrylic paint sinks into some of those. So there are some of the layers of fabric that have a few layers of acrylic paint mixed in with them, and that kind of makes them feel like they're part of the piece in a different way rather than sort of just stuck on top. I do cover the acrylic paint with a varnish. So that part is varnished. The fabric isn't. The fabric is set in gel medium, and that's what helps it to, that's what sticks it to the canvas. And so the fabric, again, the texture of the fabric is embedded with the gel medium. Um, yeah, I think that answers your question. But yeah,
Yeah, that's
the paint has
wonderful.
a varnish over it, but yeah.
I think it's important for our viewers to know, because you can't really see the beauty of the texture through
Mhm.
this kind of through the screen, but I think
Right.
when you describe it so poetically, we can kind of get a feeling of what it is you're trying to
Mhm.
portray. My last question for you is, do you have any wisdom that you would like to share to aspiring artists?
I think it would just be to figure out what you want to communicate as an artist, figure out what your medium is, figure out where your strengths are, and just keep making work. A lot of artists are trying to fit their work into a certain mold, and I think you just have to make what you feel like you should make, and just keep going. Again, just be patient and just keep working.
Thank you, Ashley. I thought that this interview was great. Getting to know you better was wonderful, and your artwork is beautiful. And I hope that everyone visits your site at Fenty, and it's on the Gasparilla page, and they would be delighted to live with your work as well as to watch you and your creative process. Thank you so much.
Thank you.